Episode 18 of the Belleville Sens podcast is here, another midsummer edition with myself, David Foote, Joel Vanderlaan here as well. Thanks for tuning in as we continue to roll through the offseason, though the offseason officially here for all 32 teams in the American Hockey League as of Wednesday. Well, Thursday, I guess, technically. The Calder Cup Final is going to 7 games between Coachella Valley and Hershey. We'll touch on that a little bit later on in the show. The draft is quickly approaching. Free agency coming up as well, so we'll chat about where the Sens' heads could be at heading into a couple of pretty important dates in the offseason calendar, and the return of Get to Know Your FO, Braiden DeVries, who is with us now full-time for the summer after starting as a high school co-op student a few months back. We'll learn more about him and his goals, aspirations, interests, all that fun stuff coming up over the course of the show. Before we get into things, one more reminder to rate the program, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. And we'll have you know that heading into episode 18, Joel Vanderlaan, we are very quickly approaching 1,000 overall plays. So it does seem like Belleville Sens fans all over the place are tuning in, which is great to see.
Yeah, it really is, and it's a lot of fun to do these podcasts, and especially now when we're going to talk about the Calder Cup Finals, the NHL Draft, NHL Free Agency, so a lot of hot topics to touch on this week as well.
It's going to be the quietest, perhaps, podcast, I think, that we've recorded over our 18 episodes. Not a whole lot going on here at Belleville Sens headquarters at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center this week because the majority of our staff are developing professionally. They're in Arizona at the American Hockey League business meetings, and we can't wait to see what they come back with in terms of ideas and things like that in a week or so. But it's making for a perfect week, really, for us to be able to sit down and, kibitz a bit and get the fans caught up on what's going on.
Yeah, exactly, and it's always a good time when the office is out there and learning, like you mentioned, about new sales techniques and all this stuff, and definitely excited to see what they come back with and kind of impart some wisdom on us with what they learned at the American Hockey League meetings there, and for us too, we just keep chugging along here, and everything seems to be on track here with getting our draft day memories posts out and preparing fans for that, and like you mentioned, NHL free agency, and it's a perfect time to get Braiden in here as well and talk about the summer kind of content calendar and what's going on with all those events as well.
Yeah, Belly's summer crew has already been out and about a few times over the weekends this summer, so we'll chat with Braiden about that coming up in a few minutes. Talking about our sales staff, we should let you know the office is still open, and even though it is June, you can still buy tickets for next season as long as you're buying a flex pack or a season seat membership or a business elite package. All of those options are available now. Teaser, we're starting to get some details of the schedule. Maybe we'll give you some hints later on in the show about that, but with the schedule will come more information about the exciting events we've got going on this year, and then more information on how to pick up single game tickets when the time arrives. But for the time being, flex packs, season seat memberships, and business elite packages. And one last hawk to tell you that if you are looking to buy a business elite package, which is basically a season seat membership for businesses, if you buy one before September 1st, you'll be entered into a draw for a pretty good prize pack that includes 18 holes at Black Bear Ridge for 4 players, a Belleville Sens replica jersey, $100 to the locker room store, and 2 times 15-second ad reads on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. Your ad could be right here on the Belleville Sens podcast if you win that draw. You'll also get a gift basket courtesy of the team. So, again, a business elite package by September 1st gets you into the draw for that fantastic prize pack. Well, that's the housekeeping, I think. Let's get into the chatter here about the NHL Draft coming up next week in Nashville on June 28th and 29th. It's going to be a bit of an interesting draft for the Senators, Joel, because they don't pick until the 4th or 5th round as of right now. Alex DeBrincat is, it's been talked about, not just rumored, that he'd like a change of scenery. Pierre Dorion may try to deal him before the draft, and I think that's probably the big piece if we want to see the Senators move up the draft board.
Yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of those picks have been moved out for Alex DeBrincat in the past, Jacob Chychrun. So kind of unusual for the Ottawa Senators to be sitting back with no pick in the first 3 rounds, no high picks as well. So Pierre Dorion has the scouting background. He started out as a head amateur scout. He worked his way through. So, he's kind of sitting there hoping that maybe he can acquire some more draft capital and kind of get back into the higher end of the draft there. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. There's some guys that need to be signed. There's some RFAs that they got to deal with as well. It's going to be kind of, for Pierre Dorion, it's a situation he hasn't really been in since he's taken over as general manager, where he's sitting back and he's making that push for the playoffs now, and he's got to really manage. When you're at the draft, I think it's kind of hard not to be in the mode of wanting to pick all these guys, and you sit there and you're waiting. It's a waiting game, but for him, I think he's going to stay the course, stay patient, make the right move with Alex DeBrincat, and then kind of see what he can do in the later rounds there and kind of get some gems in the rough.
It's one of those things. The Senators have drafted really well in that kind of 4-5 hole in the past. You look at guys like Drake Batherson, Parker Kelly was undrafted. Mark Kastelik, I believe, was a late pick as well. They've had a handful of guys who have been in that kind of wheelhouse, which I wouldn't say it's good news to not have a first-round pick, but like you said, the bright side is that Ottawa, historically speaking, has scouted and drafted really well in those middle stages.
They have, and I think a lot of that goes back to Pierre Dorion and Trent Mann. We know he's a guy that's always out there looking for these guys, scouting and running that scouting department. So they've had considerable success late. They've been able to even parlay some of these late picks in trades as well, and have done well there. Patrick Brown, we saw he made an impact for them as they kind of push for the playoffs. They traded a 6th-round pick for him as well. So it's all in the eye of the beholder, and we're going to see what Pierre Dorion's going to do with these late-round picks. If he's got 3 7th-round picks, if he's going to try to move some of those out for maybe some immediate help, or if he's going to sit on those and kind of play the development game like you mentioned, which he's had success in doing so. It's going to be a fascinating 2 days. It always is. The headliners on the first night, that's always fun to watch when you see the Connor Bedards, and you're going to remember where you are the day that he got drafted, right? So if he goes on to have a historic career like they say he's going to have. So for us, it's going to be fascinating to sit back and watch, and I know for the executives around the league, it's always nice for them to kind of put their fingerprints more so on their hockey club.
Chatting about the draft and free agency coming up here on episode 18 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Again, subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Give us a rating and a review would be fantastic. We'll remind you quickly that this will be our last show for a couple of weeks. Joel and I have vacation coming up, and we got to take it during the summer because we can't in the wintertime. So we won't be back until after the draft, but we'll have a full recap. We might have a better idea of who's coming to Belleville, as Sens development camp will be finished the week after the draft as well. So just make sure to subscribe to the pod wherever it is you're listening, and make sure you don't miss an episode when we get back to it. You mentioned the free agency piece and the the restricted free agents that the Senators still have to deal with. Guys like Igor Sokolov, Jonathan Aspero, Jacob Bernard-Docker, Jacob Larson, Dylan Ferguson, and Kevin Mandolese. Those are the restricted free agents. Bruce Garriock in his piece this morning, which is Tuesday, depending on when you're listening to the show, noting that he believes, or at least his sources are telling him, Kevin Mandolese, JBD, and Sokolov will most likely be re-signed. He doesn't believe Dylan Ferguson will be, and there hasn't been much other chatter about Jonathan Aspero and Jacob Larson. Where do you think the Sens fall on this? Those two defensemen, to me, seem like they're really on the bubble right now.
Yeah, I think Jacob Bernard-Docker, like you mentioned, that's a lock.
Yeah.
I expect him to be in the NHL next season. And Jonathan Aspero and Jacob Larson, those are the kind of guys where you're kind of looking, they're getting to the point where they're veterans in games played in the American Hockey League. So it's kind of a decision that the Sens are going to have to look and see if they want to get a little bit younger on the back end. Jacob Larsson's played over 170 NHL games. So there's always a spot for that in the organization. But you also have to look at it where he takes up a veteran spot in the American Hockey League as well. So you have guys pushing from the minors. You got guys that are pushing from junior that are going to make a stand here as well. So that's kind of on the Jacob Larsson stance. That's kind of where I think Pierre Dorion has to make that decision. And then Jonathan Aspro, the same thing. He's played, we're looking at it now, he's played 4 seasons in the American Hockey League, all with the Belleville Senators. So he's getting up there in games played. He's been a great locker room guy, a great kind of two-way defenseman, plays a physical style. I know David Bell really enjoys having him, so I could see him kind of testing the free agent waters and then them making a decision, seeing on what he comes back with, seeing what's out there. But I could see Jonathan Aspro for sure coming back to the Belleville Senators saying, hey, this is what is out there for me. Can you match it? And a conversation there.
Yeah, definitely work to be done on those fronts. And, of course, we'll keep you updated as players sign. Stay tuned to the Belleville Sens social media at Belleville Sens. You can check the off-season player tracker whenever you want on the website, BellevilleSens.com, which I believe in the next few weeks is getting a refresh. So you can stay tuned for that as well. And, of course, the major outlets will have all the coverage of the draft on June 28th and 29th. Free agency opens on July 1st, and we're excited to see who ends up here in the Friendly City next season, or even who ends up in the nation's capital. We're always watching what the parent club is up to, and as we know, there will always be some trickle up and down both ways. So we'll keep an eye on that till when we come back on episode 18 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Braiden DeVries, our newest full-time employee for now, because there's more full-timers on the way. We'll talk about that and learn more about Braiden and what he's got cooking this summer when we return. It is episode 18 of the Belleville Sens podcast on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network.
Get in the game. Start planning now for the next season of Belleville Senators hockey. The new Belleville Sens Business Elite program is a season seat membership just for business. Use tickets to treat your staff or attract new clients. Benefits include AHL TV game packages, exclusive member events, and more. All packages offer a VIP business experience like in-arena signage. More info on season seat memberships, flex packs, and the Business Elite program at BellevilleSens.com. Go, Sens, go!
Back on episode 18 of the Belleville Sens podcast. David Foote, Joel Vanderlaan here as we continue to preview the draft and free agency. In our next segment, we will recap the Calder Cup Final, which is headed to a 7th and deciding game out in California on Wednesday. Really, really good series and some familiar names on the Coachella Valley side chipping in big time. So we'll get into that in, let's say, about 10 minutes or so. But for now, we're going to get back into our Get to Know Your FO segment, Get to Know Your Front Office. If you've been a loyal listener of the Belleville Sens podcast, you know that over the course of the season, we've been catching up with, members of the front office, the people who work here every day and make sure that things tick along smoothly. And the newest addition to our group, at least in terms of full-time staffing, is Braiden DeVries, who is on the show with us this week. How's it going, Braiden?
Not bad. Thanks for having me on, fellas.
Good, good. I'm going to get you to get that thing a little closer to your mouth. Perfect. Mic technique is, you'll learn eventually down the road. Braiden, as we mentioned earlier on, so working with us full-time for the summer. Started as a co-op student with Bayside Secondary School, still the home of the Red Devils. That's not changing. There was a lot of discussion about that over the last couple months. Tell us a bit about landing here. Why the Belleville Senators? How did you end up with that opportunity in the first place?
Yeah, so I think it's one of those right place at the right time kind of moments. Marie Punot, who we already met on the show, was actually a student teacher when she was going through Teachers College in my business class. And she offered the opportunity to start my co-op here, and jumped all over that. Working in pro sports at my age isn't really something everyone gets to do. So kind of jumped all over that. Took as many opportunities as I could throughout the season. I got hired on. Some people may know me from working at guest services during the games. Tried to get out into the community for some of the events that we had. Just any opportunity I could to help out.
I will say, Braiden has been a shining example for those high school students who are trying to get some experience, just in terms of the commitment that you've shown to our group early on, and just the dedication. Like, you're here all the time, even when you don't have to be, and that's a quality that I think a lot of folks your age maybe don't necessarily possess. So that's been a big, I think, from the outside thing that we've noticed about you and your commitment to the organization from the get-go. So kudos to you for that.
Appreciate it.
How has how long have you been here now? Is it 4 months? Longer than that?
It's since last September, I think. I started co-op way back then, just kind of trickled in with some game experience, and now full-time, I think I've been doing this since May-ish.
Yeah, crazy. So how's it kind of matched up to your expectations, what you thought it might be like after finding out, hey, I'm going to get to go intern with a pro hockey team?
I didn't really have too many expectations. Haven't really seen the front office side of sports. It's kind of interesting to see how every piece comes together, from the sales department, marketing department, even your guys' department here, seeing how the show in general is put together. And so being able to fill that events role, and even that marketing internship I did, it's a neat experience. It's definitely difficult work. Definitely can't be someone who shies away from hard work. It's probably my biggest takeaway from the whole experience.
Yeah, and you talk about the experiences, the firsthand knowledge that you're gaining. How much has that put you kind of in an advantageous position as you head to Brock University in the fall?
Just from what I've heard from other people, I know the program I'm taking, so currently sports management is what I'm going to be getting into. I know a lot of people in that position are looking to get internships under their belt. A lot of teams in the area, like the Niagara Ice Dogs and some of the Junior A, Junior B teams around that area. So I think it's good to get this one underneath my belt before I even head off there, and kind of gives me a little bit more knowledge going into other internships that I may go through.
And I guess kind of what are you looking to get out of this summer working here and kind of adding that to your plate now? An internship is one thing, but a full-time job at your age with a professional sports team on your resume, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think, like you said there at the resume, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is going to be just building up my resume. There's a lot of skills I'm going to be able to take out of this, some transferable skills. Like I said earlier, I'll be able to take other internships or wherever I end up after school. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me.
Chatting with Braiden DeVries. What is your title right now? What does your business card say?
So it's coordinator of community events.
Perfect. Let's talk about some community events then. Belly's summer crew into its second season, and Belly had earned the reputation as the hardest working mascot in the American Hockey League last summer. That trend is continuing because he's already been out and about, and one of the main responsibilities for Braiden is managing those community events. How have they been so far? What's it been like getting out and interacting with the Belleville Sens fans around the region?
Yeah, so I'm sure you guys know our fans are great. We have got to quite a few events, but not as much as we're going to throughout the summer. We've got to a couple, like our Fun Fest that they hold out in Zwick's Park there, our Pride event. I think just being able to interact with the fans and seeing them outside of the arena, it's good for them to know that we're in the community. So having that presence out there is definitely important.
And you'll be out and about throughout the course of the summer. What can fans expect when they see you guys out and about? We should say, if you see the Belleville Sens tent, don't be afraid to pop over and say hi to any of the crew who's working, especially if Braiden's out there.
Yeah, well, like you said, definitely going to have Belly out and about. He loves those summer events, hardworking guy. All sorts of information for our upcoming season. Once we get into those events towards the end of July, early August, we'll be able to inform you guys a little bit on what the schedule is going to look like. Going to be able to give out some more information in regards to all of our packages that we're running. Always running giveaways. For example, the summer giveaway that people might be familiar with. It's great value in that. All you got to do is scan a QR code. So I definitely say if you see us out and about, come over and scan that, and who knows, you might get a call in September that you've won a huge prize pack.
Yeah, do you know offhand what's in the prize pack?
Yeah, so I believe it's 2 full season ticket packs, 2 parking passes, it's $250 merch credit, as well as 2 sign pucks.
Tough to beat. That's a pretty good package. And again, all you have to do is find Belly's community crew out and about throughout the summer. Stay tuned again to the Belleville Sens social media at Belleville Sens. They're always putting out where and when Belly's going to be out at those events. So make sure to stop by and enter that contest. Joel mentioned you're off to Brock University in September. What are you looking forward to most about heading off to school? It's an exciting time for any young man.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the office know I put my academics first. I like to challenge myself in that way. So I think another 4 years of education underneath my belt is going to be fun to get. It's definitely different material than what I'm used to learning. So I'm kind of excited for that. It's not like your English and math and those kind of generic classes. You definitely get to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and try new things and experience different type of content.
Well, I admire your gumption for school because it's something that I never had, and again, a tough skill to teach. So that's fantastic. Anything else you wanted to add before we let you go?
Don't have too much, but other than I'd recommend everyone try to get out to as many events as possible. You'll see on our social medias where we're going to be. We're constantly posting updates in regards to that stuff. So, yeah.
Perfect. We're going to leave it right at that. Braiden DeVries nails it on his first appearance on the Belleville Sens podcast. Again, stay tuned to the socials and BellevilleSens.com to find out where Braiden and Belly might be popping up next around the region. We'll take another short break. When we come back, Joel and I will get you caught up on what's been an absolutely enthralling Calder Cup Final, and we'll wrap things up before we take a couple weeks break here on the Belleville Sens podcast. Stay with us on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network.
Don't miss 1 second of Belleville Senators action this season. The Belleville Sens Entertainment Network is the only place to hear live coverage of the Belleville Senators for all 72 games plus playoffs. And the network is also home to the Belleville Sens podcast, the Belleville Senators Entertainment Network, presented by Deerhaven Farm and Garden. Tune in on the Belleville Sens app or BellevilleSens.com.
Final segment of episode 18 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Thanks again to Braiden DeVries for his time in segment 2. Get to know your FO. And again, you can stay tuned to the Belleville Sens social media. The Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, your local municipality, probably has an events calendar out. And likely, if you go out to some community events, you'll see Braiden and Belly and company out there. And don't miss your chance to enter Belly's summer giveaway. The feature item of that prize pack is a pair of season tickets, parking passes. Braiden mentioned it as well. There's a merchandise gift credit and more. And the only way you can enter is by stopping by to see Belly and Braiden and friends in person at events throughout the region this summer. So make sure to do that. Want to take some time before we say goodbye to talk about the Calder Cup Final, which is headed to a 7th game on Wednesday. Coachella Valley Firebirds, the expansion team, and the oldest team in the American Hockey League, the Hershey Bears, battling for the league's top prize. And it's been a really, really interesting series. We were kind of hoping it would end on Monday night, and we could recap the entire series and season because Joel and I in the comms department are taking a bit of a break for the next couple weeks. So we'll have an update on the Calder Cup Final at that point, as well as an update on the draft and free agency and whatever else is going on that we've tried to preview as best we can this week. But what a crazy series it's been. Coachella Valley wins the first 2 games at home. Hershey takes all 3 at the Giant Center back in Pennsylvania, and then back to Palm Desert, and the Firebirds with a win in Game 6 to force Game 7. It's not gone how I expected it to go.
No, it's been entertaining to say the least, and you think when you take the 2-game advantage for Coachella Valley, you think, well, there's no way they're going to lose all 3 in Hershey, right? But they do, and both these teams throughout the whole playoffs have been excellent on home ice, as we've seen, and Coachella's 12-3 at home. Hershey's 7-3 at the Giant Center, so it kind of, I guess from that perspective, it kind of played out the way that it had gone throughout the course of the playoffs, but No, it's I didn't think Coachella was going to drop all three in Hershey, and that's nothing against the Hershey Bears. I just thought once they got that little bit of momentum from home ice, they would be able to take one at home and kind of finish it off like we mentioned maybe in Game 6, but that's not the case as the Hershey Bears have forced a Game 7 here.
And the Firebirds have been getting some help from some familiar names to Belleville Sens fans. Max McCormick has points in 5 of 6 games in the series. He's among the leaders in the playoffs. Joey Decord has started all 25 games of the postseason for the Firebirds, so 25 straight games for him. And he's backed up by another former Belleville Sen, Chris Dreger, as well, who hasn't had to see any action because JDAC has been outstanding. Are you surprised at how even the series has been? And it's tough because you look at typically an expansion team and you go, well, they're probably not going to do great. But this Firebirds team has been among the league leaders all season long, as have the Hershey Bears, who are almost always a powerhouse in this league.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it on the last podcast a little bit from the glimpses we saw from Hershey when we watched them live and we covered their games against the Belleville Senators, and we kind of felt that they had that it factor, right? The Ethan Franks, the Mike Vecchionis of the world, and you go down their lineup. Hunter Shepard's been outstanding in net as well, so you kind of figured that they were a team that they could kind of put themselves in a position like this. It's tough because we don't see the Pacific Division, right? So you look at it and you see, well, you got Joey Decord in net, you got Max McCormick, and you kind of piece some knowledge that you know of the team, and then they get Shane Wright, and he's had a great playoffs. Ty Cartier's been up and down with Seattle, and you kind of look and you say, well, yeah, it makes sense that they can get to this point with the roster they have, but until you see it, you don't really know, to your point, and I think it has been, like you mentioned, there's been a couple of upsets here. I think Game 1, the 5-0 win, and the Joey Decord shutout, and then they come back and he shuts them out again, and you kind of think, okay, this is going to be one-sided, but to Hershey's credit, they really came home and shut the door and did what they had to do. And but Coachella on home ice, you look at their wins, 5-0, 4-0, 5-2. That building's going to be raucous Game 7. But like we said, you never want to count out the Hershey Bears. They did it at home. They came back and won those 3, and they got to find a way to win just one on the road, and they're Calder Cup champs. So really well led by Todd Nelson and his crew as well. So.
Yeah, don't make a prediction just yet, but I do want to talk about home ice a little bit more, because when we teed up this series a couple weeks ago, we kind of had that as one of the question marks of how it would impact the series, because everybody knows what the Giant Center is like. If you follow the American Hockey League and you know who the Hershey Bears are, you know that they're drawing 5,000 to 7,000 fans every single game, and you know that they are loud and boisterous and into the game and really making an impact for the Hershey Bears. Way out west in a brand new arena that wasn't even built when the season started, you don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like, what kind of impact it might make. And boy, the fans in Coachella Valley have not taken long to show the American Hockey League that they're here, they mean business, and just like the oldest fan base in the league, can be equally as impactful in a championship series.
Yeah, and I think that's just a credit to the American Hockey League. And you look when they were looking at expansion plans and they were looking at where's this franchise going to go, Coachella Valley, and they've answered all the questions like you mentioned. Location's a beautiful place, arena's beautiful, fans are coming out in droves, they're winning. It's just been a perfect marriage for the American Hockey League through one season.
Yeah, it's been outstanding again. Game number 7 of the Calder Cup Final goes on Wednesday, June 21st, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. Hershey and Coachella Valley tied 3-3. The home team has won every game of the series so far, which brings me to the big question. Does that trend continue in Game 7?
I think it does. I think they're too good at home ice. We talked about it. The wins that they've been able to put up at home ice against this Hershey Bears team, I think it continues, and a big credit to Ron Francis and his staff with the job he's done to put this team together. And Joey Decord's been outstanding. It's been a marathon for him. He's played a lot of hockey, but I think he's got one more in him. And I think the kind of the kids that are driving the bus, the Shane Wright, the Ty Cartier, and then you sprinkle in the veterans like Max McCormick. I think they're going to get it done.
For argument's sake, I'll take the Hershey Bears in Game 7. I think they will buck the trend. They'll get the one win on the road that they need to bring home another Calder Cup back to Pennsylvania, and we'll see who wins the 7th game. We'll recap things again in a couple of weeks. I did mention that we are starting to get some details of the schedule. We can't really talk about too much other than to tell you that there will be some new and relatively unique things on the calendar this year. Games on some days, perhaps, that we don't normally play on. A couple of opponents who perhaps we haven't played in a few years. That's all I'm going to be able to tell you, or else my boss will stop giving me information. So we'll leave it at that. And again, just remind you that as soon as the schedule is out, we'll start to break down how and when you can buy single game tickets. If you're impatient and you want to make sure you've got seats for the upcoming season, season seat memberships and flex packs are available, as are business elite packages. And if you missed the top of the show, if you buy a business elite package before September 1st, you'll be entered into a draw for a prize pack that includes 18 holes of golf for 4 at Black Bear Ridge, Belleville Sens replica jersey, $100 to the locker room store, 2 15-second ad reads on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network, and a Belleville Sens gift basket. So if you are a business owner, you know a business owner who's looking for an affordable and accessible way to partner with the hockey club and get yourself some hockey tickets as well, the Business Elite Package is probably the way to do that. And you've got the added bonus of potentially winning that prize pack should you buy that package before September the 1st. I think that's it for us this week. Joel, anything to say before we pause for a couple of weeks?
Not much. I think we've said it all, and wishing everybody a happy Canada Day and a relaxing summer as they kind of head off into their vacations plans as we kind of take a couple weeks off here.
Yeah, Belly's summer crew will be out. The draft is coming up, free agency coming up, and a whole lot more as the offseason rolls on. We'll be back in a couple of weeks again. Rate, review, make sure to subscribe, and you won't miss episode 19 when it does drop in a couple of weeks here on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. For Joel Vanderlaan and Braiden DeVries, David Foote thanking you as always so much for listening. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.